All right, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Tom Braddock. I'm Senior Education Specialist at SHSMD, a professional membership group of the American Hospital Association. So before we get started, I just want to make sure you're all aware of our upcoming certificate course, Leveraging AI and Healthcare Marketing and Communication. So if you're interested in webinars like this one and and learning other practical AI strategies to improve your work, I recommend you take a look at the agenda, and I'll put a link in the chat. Speaking of AI, please also note that attendees are strictly prohibited from using artificial intelligence tools, including note-taking apps, during any American Hospital Association virtual event. So with that, I welcome you all to the SHSMD webinar, Why Digital Media is Your Secret Weapon to Bounce Back from Organic Losses. SHSMD would like to extend a sincere thank you to Healthcare Success for sponsoring today's program. And this webinar is now being recorded and is broadcast in listen-only mode. If you have a question, please submit it by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, as we have designated time at the end for Q&A. So it's now my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. We're joined by Stuart Gandalf, who is the CEO of Healthcare Success, Brandon Chicola, who is Senior Director of Digital Strategy and Growth, Michelle Gao, who is Director of Paid Media and Strategy, and Madison Kyleman, who is the Paid Media Manager at Healthcare Success. So Stuart, Brandon, Michelle, and Madison, thank you all for joining us. The floor is yours.
Great. Welcome, everybody. Hi, I'm Stuart, as Tom just suggested. Today, our team is very excited to be here with you and share a lot of our insights from being out into this world every single day. We're going to start off, obviously, we'll do our quick introductions. We'll be talking about the new reality of AI search. So this webinar today, by the way, is very much about paid media. We've just completed a couple weeks ago one about the organic side. And so if you're interested in that topic, we can give you links for that as well. However, the organic side is so important. We will be talking about it a little bit at the beginning of this, just to sort of set the groundwork for what's going on. We'll be talking about visibility and how that's changing, how paid media, and that's the point of this webinar, can really help you as you think about the commerce terms, or the terms that will bring you patients, and other types of paid search to supplement, and different strategies to supplement with the organic losses as things change. Talking about how to do things smarter and what to expect in the future. And we will have a Q&A. Very importantly, registrants will get the recording and the deck after the presentation, so that'll be coming to you following it. So let's just dive right in. Yeah, let's go straight to it. So today, this topic obviously is relevant in healthcare. And I guess I'd start off by saying it's not your imagination. Everything changed. Everything has been changing for a long time. And Brandon will talk about how this has been happening historically. But back in March, and we've seen this with website after website after website, hospitals, health systems, multi-location practices, telehealth. Google changed its algorithm over a period of weeks that most people felt big time. And essentially what that was the impact of Google AI overviews became very prominent in search. And again, my team will talk about this in more detail in just a moment. But that changed everything because we saw organic started to change really, really quickly, and everything, the world changed in our view. Additionally, we hear a lot about ChatGPT and the other LLMs, and those also have been changing things through the last, actually for longer than that. But the biggest thing started around March. So the world has changed currently. And, we look at the Google CEO talked about how search is going to change fundamentally this year. It has. People are increasingly using tools like AI overviews, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google's Gemini for searching. We see this with our clients. We see this with ourselves. Yesterday, a hospital system reached out to us because they asked ChatGPT a really long question about who's the best, and they decided to call us based on the criteria they had. So it's really important to think about this both organically and with paid searches and other paid media, as we'll talk about it. So we'll talk today a lot about the funnel stages, how this stuff all fits together, and how to be there and present for the patient. So we're going to turn the ball over to Brandon, and we'll talk a little bit about the trends that are happening today and the organic side before we dive straight into the digital. Brandon?
Yeah, welcome. Something to keep in mind, like these kinds of changes have been happening for a long time. we've been on this trajectory for years, decades even. So some key milestones to keep in mind is, there was universal search, which was all the way back like towards 2010, where Google started blending multiple forms of media into the search results. We had the knowledge graph, which was very important, and sort of the scaffolding on which a lot of these new surfaces depend on. So the knowledge graph was something that arrived when Google bought up a small company called Freebase that was trying to mark up all of the things around the web, entities. And based on that, they were then able to build out things like the topic layer, the shopping graph, and eventually the SGE launch, which was privately sitting in labs for at least a year before AI overviews actually rolled out in 2024 in May after Google I/O. And then this year we had the rollout of AI mode. And so from that point of the knowledge graph, we had kind of entered a different phase of search, which was more dedicated to what we call semantic search. And now built on top of that infrastructure, we now have these additions of large language models and a different form of information retrieval. So the root cause of a lot of this decrease in clicks and traffic heading direct to the site is a result of these SERP features that have been continually been pulling in so that Google becomes the arbiter of the web. All right, this is a really old strategy from the beginning of the web. AOL wrote it, everyone's still running it. So in the top left, you can see an example of an AI overview where instead of coming back with rankings, Google's coming back with a full summary of information that they know that's getting pulled from various directions across the web. People also ask, which infinitely expands. AI overviews are also tucked inside of that now. You have like Jennifer Hale here. You can see her knowledge graph and what Google knows about her in terms of facts. You have map packs, and you also have more recently discussions and forums. So there's like 40 or 50 of these that in existence now, and there's just going to be more of them as these new search surfaces continue to bloom as we head into this new phase. So AI search is not traditional search at all. So for example, when you get the deck, you can take this query, pop that into AI mode and see what comes back. It is not a set of search results or rankings, which means we're dealing with a different kind of surface. We're dealing with a different kind of experience that is taking what may have been maybe 20 or 30 sequential searches and compacting them. So this is what's behind the change in the patient journey. So organic visibility in general is in decline. Now, some of that is false. Some of that is a result of Google changing a parameter and deciding after 20 years they're not going to support it so that web scrapers can't get the full 100 results and report on your ranking tranches. We know that, but in general, hospitals and health systems have seen about a 35 to 40% drop since Google's AI overviews launched. Zero-click searches, those now exceed 58%. So where did those go? Well, it turns out there's only slight adoption of these new AI surfaces. So AI overviews, Perplexity, GPT, but even GPT is powered off of a Google API or a Bing API, depending on the flavor of the day. So what's changing is the click-through rate era is dying, right? That's ending. Patients are still searching. In fact, they're searching more. And these new AI surfaces aren't kicking off one search. They're sometimes kicking off hundreds to get back their answers. So organic's only going to take care of a part of the patient journey, and we need to all just come to grips with that. Organic SEO alone can no longer guarantee full discoverability. You're going to need to be dependent on using paid media to diversify your traffic inputs. Oftentimes, paid will be the last click because in healthcare, it's an emotional response. And so you need to be there and present when that emotional response happens. Investing in targeted HIPAA-compliant campaigns is really going to allow you to reclaim that lost exposure. The pace is rapid, and there's a whole bunch of new opportunities coming. They're just not fully baked yet. So things to keep your eyes on. Perplexity was offering some advertising about a year ago. They partnered with Indeed, Whole Foods, Universal McCann, PMG, its pilots. They were allowing people to bid on like the next question that someone might ask in the conversation. They actually just recently paused the expansion to new advertisers. And there's not really a roadmap for ads inside of Comet, which is their new browser. But again, this stuff is changing rapidly, like on a daily basis in some cases. I think that there's likely some scale anxiety that may be premature. And then obviously HIPAA remains a pretty much undefined territory, especially in Q4 for most of our verticals. GPT, this is a big audience pool. It's going to get bigger. It's 700 million for users. But Sam Altman, as he kind of quavers and is known to quaver, said ads were going to be a last resort. We need to keep in mind that GPT-5 is pretty much a router system. It's routing between multiple different versions of these large language models. You have fast, you have reasoning, you have mini versions, and they're all really built to, at least now, assess the commercial value of a query, and the informational value of the query just gets trapped inside of that experience and inside of the summary. They just released this week their own browser, Atlas. So again, it's the AOL strategy all over again. Everyone's just trying to figure out a way to suck up your data. They also just released this past week instant checkout and the ACP, or Agentic Commerce Protocol. There's not a lot of information about how that is going to be tracked, if they're going to give us data like Google Search Console gives us. But what is being talked about is the conversion rate is said to be almost 4x to traditional organic search. And AI is pre-qualifying a lot of that before the click-through. So we're going to see clicks become a lot more brittle. You can only really track these not inside of GA4 or whatever. You can only see that stuff happening in your log files. So that's my SEO hat tip to all of you. Get used to parsing them. Strategy here, I would say begin to allocate about 5 to 10% of your paid budget to AI search and these new sort of advertising pilots. Start experimenting with these new surfaces. Claude, they launched something called Keep Thinking back in September, partnering with Netflix, Hulu, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. They don't really have an ad platform. It's little to date in terms of conversion information from them. They're more or less focused on the responsibility side of this new surface. So I would say wait and see, focus on brand safety, and keep in mind that this is about 300,000 business customers. So if you're in B2B in healthcare, particularly like hospitals, health systems, this is something you're going to want to pay attention to moving forward. So Google is going to remain your mainstay for quite some time. There are ads and AI overviews. That's been the case for a year. They're rolling out to more countries. You've got AI mode that began testing in Q3. You can do text ads, shopping ads, local ads, app campaigns. These are algorithmically inserted where there is commercial intent inside of that multi-step chain. So one thing you're going to want to do is start thinking about how to simulate those conversations. What is the chain of thought that your patient is going through at the time? And from a paid media side, I would highly recommend you start adjusting query negatives very aggressively, especially discovering when you're dealing with the training data versus a query maybe triggering grounding, meaning it has to go out to search to find new information to pull back in. You can use various tools to track AI visibility. There's new tooling like Profound or Wake or AirOps. We ourselves at Healthcare Success are partnering with someone to come up with a very specific solution to this problem. And we'll have more on that for you somewhere in Q1. Off to you, Michelle.
Perfect. So yeah, essentially zero click is what we're seeing in the platforms for my media buyers in this room. We're seeing CPCs or cost per clicks driving upwards, right? So what does that actually essentially mean? And we can go to the next slide, Brandon. SEO alone is not enough, and we know this. We established that organic visibility has shifted entirely how the world is receiving information or data, especially your patients when it comes to healthcare and hospitals specifically. So diversifying your media mix to focus on paid media, which we're here to speak about today, is going to be the key factor to gaining your visibility. Essentially, where you're losing your visibility in organic, we can kind of make up for in paid media. So paid ads are the only guaranteed placements above AI overviews and summary boxes. They can establish brand presence. Your organic listings, especially those that are being replaced by AI responses, and utilizing third-party partners that can provide HIPAA compliancy to protect your data so that PHI information is protected and never communicated externally. You can remain compliant while utilizing data to retarget, personalize the information, and even increase your ROI inevitably. So every dollar that you invest into paid media will be fueling your visibility, both in conversions that we'll talk about further in this webinar, as well as it communicates back to the AI platforms organically of who you are as a trusted source, which inevitably creates this positive feedback loop that we'll dive into. So what are the 3 principles going into the end of this year, but more importantly, into the next year? So 1, we're embracing the visibility economy. Zero-click presence is optimizing visibility and citations, not clicks, right? So strategic presence will challenge all of us to, across all AI platforms and our SERP features, really take note as to how we're strategically being present in a new visibility economy. And 3, tracking share of voice as a lead indicator. So what does that essentially mean in terms of how and when the data is attributed? Well, we're evolving the standard attribution models. So incrementally tests are exemplifying that correlation is not causation. Adapting and accepting the directional confidence over false precision, leaning into the changes and adapting as the platforms are adapting are one of the key factors of staying ahead and evolving. We'll talk about some statistics that we've seen later on for folks that haven't, and allocating 10% of your budget to experimenting ongoing. So taking advantage of early positioning within AI search and advertising, staying integrated within communities, targeting. We'll talk about CTV and programmatic a little bit, expanding your mix into other channels, not just paid media, not just SEO. Talk about your budget framework and overall prioritizing data infrastructure to enabling within compliancy a unique way of targeting in the midst of organic visibility declining. Perfect. So as we mentioned, paid search is one of those key factors. We also will talk about paid social in terms of guaranteed visibility. So what does that look like? An example for you on the left, most of us in this room are familiar. Hospitals specifically can maintain consistent paid presence after AI overviews roll out. In fact, hospitals specifically saw impressions recover 30% faster for those that were partaking in paid search ads versus those that were not. So yes, zero-click is leading CPCs to increase by about 22% year over year. But guess what? So are our conversions and so are our lead qualities. So while visibility can no longer be earned, it can be bought in some ways, and paid search is one of those tactics that we can utilize to keep your visibility in front of your patient's eyes where they still go. So how are other folks adapting in the midst of these changes? Well, as we mentioned, AI overviews are intercepting generic searches. However, advertisers can be really intelligent in terms of pushing budget more towards those high intent keywords or strategy campaigns. Often, traditionally within paid media, those can be in higher investment. However, leaning into those in terms of certain campaigns can actually yield higher quality results, especially long-term in terms of lifetime value. So reallocating in the midst of the CPC inflation across medical specialties will actually increase your availability to increase your impression share, especially in awareness keywords, which have dropped 31% in the midst of these changes. So what we've noticed is marketers who maintain modest top of funnel discovery campaigns see a 17% higher conversion lift, providing familiarity within your brands versus those who stay within lower in the funnel. So it's no longer top of funnel versus bottom funnel competing budgets. It's top of funnel feeding bottom funnel within our paid media ecosystem. So it's ongoing. So this shift will tighten your competition and increase your CPCs, yes, but it also can produce an opportunity to have cleaner, more qualified leads that convert at a higher rate within your paid media ecosystem. So we talked about intent-based just a little earlier. So what does that actually mean? So boiling it down, you'll see on the left here, we speak about the effective healthcare funnel, or what we like to consider your patient journey experience, or even your patient nurturing experience. So considering where they are in the journey, from awareness to consideration to conversions, you really want to anchor where your patient is based on their investment and mirror that within the ads process. So likeliness in the awareness stage, they're searching for broad conditions or keywords like joint pain treatment. Sometimes you'll see often more modernly is we'll tie it in with local or action-based modifiers. So I need a hospital appointment near me. Who's open near me? So that's an awareness stage. And then they'll transition into a consideration stage where they're looking at reviews, they're looking at doctors' names, they're looking at, does this practice take my insurance? They're looking perhaps for an emergency room or urgent care options for what's the waiting room like, etc. Then they go to the conversions, where most of us care about the quality of the leads, where they factor in, does this actually equate to appointments? Are you meeting the right audiences? Are they calling now? Are they looking to walk in today? So what we suggest is matching that intent in terms of awareness. It could be broader terms in the way that you choose to advertise your copy, your landing page experience, and mirroring that for consideration, and then inevitably conversions. So one of those high intent keyword campaigns is going to be involving long tail keywords or long tail search. So long tail healthcare keywords have traditionally been utilized minimally versus more maximum. And so what we've noticed is that long tail healthcare keywords specifically, in other words, 3 words or more within the keywords will actually generate 12 to 22% higher conversions than your generic terms. So while AI overviews are absorbing symptomatic traffic, users who are clicking through are actually ready to act. They're looking to make a decision very, very quickly. That means, yes, lower volume that comes from these long tail healthcare keywords. However, they yield higher value, stronger engagement, and faster revenue return. So in 2025, going to 2026, it's no longer quantity over quality, it's quality over quantity. So not about how many clicks that we can track, but how many calls we can maintain and upkeep. So long tail keywords are essentially what we utilize in manual campaigns. Another popular tactic of paid search campaigns that we hear of that often yields and performs differently in healthcare specifically is going to be performance max. So PMax campaigns and manual campaigns, we put a side by side for you in terms of what are their pros, what are their cons, what are they utilized. Manual campaigns are going to be keyword based, essentially allowing us to be precise within the targeting, precise within keyword match type for budgeting, and even at the landing page experience, right? So oftentimes it'll be perhaps a higher investment will yield a nicer conversion rate, especially more consistently in terms of results. So performance max will yield a higher click-through rate, perhaps a conversion rate or lower CPA. However, it's a broader reach, and when not done properly, you can be over relying on the platform's AI or algorithm and essentially putting extra spend that you don't need to into the wrong campaign types. So what you need to watch out for if you do go the PMax route is not only to look at the negative keywords, but also look at the queries and look at your creatives as well as other components of the campaign. Another factor is going to be closing that feedback loop of the action items, whether it's calls, form fills, bookings, inquiries, tours, and actually having that data feedback into the loop back into the ads platforms. So how does that happen? Offline conversion uploads, which is a mouthful for sure. Don't say that 5 times fast. So instead of settling for form fills as a conversion, you'll want to integrate your CRMs within the platforms. Now, I know most of us healthcare marketers, hospitals alike, are thinking, but PHI, how does that happen in a modern day? Well, it is possible. And why it is essential is that we actually want to communicate to the platform in terms of who's actually getting us the qualities in terms of campaigns, in terms of keywords, who's attending, or who's becoming patients. The platform itself will then optimize towards those real outcomes instead of those spam submissions. We've all gotten those bot responses and we all are not friendly to them, right? So this feedback loop will allow us to sharpen our targeting, improve our bidding, and drive down acquisition costs. That's great. This campaign drove this many impressions, but actually, how many bookings did this end up into? So when we're able to utilize the data and feedback back into the loop, we're able to be smarter as marketers. So when we talk about CRMs, I know a lot of us use healthcare specific ones. Some may opt into Salesforce Health Cloud. It'll push back those actual key events, those win back events, back into partners like FreshPaint, which Google then utilizes the learnings from it to produce more push towards the campaigns and towards the keywords. So accounts who actually utilize these imports in an ongoing loop will see a 18 to 25% at least minimum CPA reduction and 31% lift in qualified leads. And we've seen this across a lot of our new accounts that we've onboarded as well. Location, location, location. So healthcare is local. We know that. So patients, just like ourselves, want to search for folks near them. And so geo-targeting is going to really come into play as a way for us to take ground in the midst of AI overviews. This is a way that we can stand out as marketers. So localized campaigns, guess what? Outperform generic campaigns 3 times. So structuring campaigns at the city level, zip code level, of course, you want to monitor the radiuses based off the population, and your facility level based off your capacity. Every impression connects to a real accessible point of care. So we can actually maximize this by looking to call extensions, map listings, that would be in a PMAX, as well as localized copy, right? This is an area that for sure we can stand out amongst AI, allowing our ads to show up exactly when and where patients are needing them. So this is what we call proximity precision. So visibility that actually converts because it feels to the end user the direction that Google is going into, personalized and immediate. So amidst that, we've talked about data, we've talked about personalized. How can we take that another step further? Well, the most valuable data you're going to own is the one that you own, right? So the most valuable audience you'll have is the one that's already engaged with you, who knows of you. And so connecting your website, your CRM, and ad platforms through HIPAA compliancy, of course, event tracking is going to be crucial. When a patient fills out your form or calls you, this is essentially what becomes first party signal that can actually trigger a series of tailored ads, or what we repeated, the patient nurture journey, right? So layering retargeting around intent and stage, visitor lead appointment, and returning patient will produce a 25 to 40% lift in conversion rate amongst generic retargeting lists. So combining the CRM data that you have, looking at to the ad frequency control of how many times folks are engaging with our ads, changing the ads based off the frequency, and pairing it with the patients who actually are seeing those touch points will likely increase your booking probability and actually will double it. So aligning SEO is going to be really crucial in this step here, with looking into your retargeting themes, your blog engagement, as well as which audience is actually engaging and actually utilizing that within your ads and paid media tactics. So we can't talk about SEO and paid media without talking about the cousin in the room, programmatic and CTV. So search captures existing demand, and CTV is here. Most of us have, who have been in the space know that traditional TV, traditional media, et cetera, and tactics have been around for ages, right? And it's not going away. In fact, it's evolving as well. CTV is only evolving from that, and it's creating a lot of that demand. So while search captures an intent, we can actually create it with programmatic. So extending the digital storytelling through real world DAOH or display ads out of home, leaning into digital billboards that are amongst us, elevator screens, medical campus signage. AI is actually mirroring how we can target, similar to how CTVs are targeting. So it will be household targeting, as well as other third-party segments that are protected, that you can lean into and mirror how AI operates within programmatic and CTV. So an example experience of that patient nurture journey will be someone like myself will watch an ad on Hulu. Great, I'm on an ad break. I see it for a clinic or a hospital, and I'll search you up on my phone, right? Right then and there, I'm hit with a Google ad that the hospital has put there, or perhaps a paid social campaign, right? Whether it's a video of the facilities, video of the doctor itself, then I'm able to make a decision if I want to book an appointment. So using AI optimized frequency allows us to ensure folks are not hitting fatigue, the right folks are seeing the right ad the right amount of times, and allowing us to measure CPMs, or cost per thousand metrics, within 18 to 22 within healthcare versus national average. So programmatic is no longer, we're launching this, crossing our fingers for awareness only, and hoping and praying that it works. And it's actually a very measured tool that can be a great partner and ally to synchronize search, as well as funneling your entire patient funnel. So we talked about programmatic, we talked about organic media, SEO, right? And paid media, of course, which is what we're here to discuss. What does that all mean? I mean, how do I split that? If there's a budget, what does that all mean? Well, essentially you'll want to run all of this together, right? Running both paid and organic doubles your chance of visibility, especially in the world of AI overviews and SERP simultaneously. Joint presence will increase your CTR by about 38% and your dwell time by 22%. This provides consistent user feedback that informs AI's understanding of your trustworthiness, that we talked about the positive feedback loop. Essentially, we're training the algorithm to recognize our brand as authoritative. So following Google's EAT or EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust, you're reinforcing your paid visibility. You're seeking to increase your presence and rank for ad presence, for building confidence within the platforms themselves. So you'll want to do coordinating campaigns within your organic and your paid campaigns across paid social and paid search. So that's your descriptions, your call outs, and your call to actions to increase that lift in conversions. So the best practice is to treat both as a shared conversation instead of separate silos. Now I want to talk about what does that actually mean in terms of execution and what's actually working? And I'll pass it to Madison Killen.
So let's start with what's driving performance right now. Across every healthcare account we manage, the winning formula is still intent paired with local alignment. Patients aren't searching for awareness, they're really searching for access here. So that's why keywords like same-day MRI, urgent care near me consistently outperform those broader terms by over 40%. And we're pairing that demand with automation, but with some control. So Performance Max helps us scale discovery while manual search keeps the lead quality strong. And that blended approach has consistently produced cleaner leads and stronger ROI. And the biggest shift this year has come from measurement. With GA4, privacy platforms like FreshPaint, and AI-assisted call tracking all connected, we can finally see the full patient journey all the way up from clicked to booked appointment. So we're no longer measuring impressions alone, we're measuring impact. But with that paid performance, it doesn't just come targeting, creative comes with that as well. So let's look at what creative is driving patient ROI on that next slide. All right, so one of the biggest performance killers in healthcare marketing right now is creative fatigue. When we rotate in new creative every 10 days, we see that fatigue drop by over 30%. And when we move away from that overly clinical, sterile messaging, more to like human storytelling, the difference is pretty drastic as well. UGC and clinician-led content outperforms stock visuals by 44%. It's just proof that that authenticity really scales patient trust. And it's not just what we say here, it's really how we sequence it. So when we build journeys like search, social, CTV, conversion rates more than double. And we also don't want to forget that compliance builds credibility here. So HIPAA-safe creative isn't a limitation, it's actually a trust signal with patients. So how do we connect all of that creative, targeting, measurement into one intelligent system that works together? That's what we'll look at today in our 2025 paid media stack. So this is the new anatomy of connected marketing here. Search, social, programmatic aren't running in silos anymore. They're running as one connected, intelligent ecosystem. At the center, we've got privacy platforms like FreshPaint. That's really the heartbeat, collecting compliant first-party data from calls, forms, web events. And then that data then feeds into CRMs, where AI learns which campaigns are actually driving booked appointments. Then those insights feed right back into Meta, Google, TikTok, and CTV. So every channel really learns from the same feedback loop here. That just means that we're making data-driven decisions in real time, not based solely on clicks, but on actual appointment bookings. And when clients move to this unified stack, we see a 29% boost in attribution accuracy and a 21% reduction in wasted spend. So while search and automation are advancing fast, paid social is actually playing a bigger role than ever in discovery. So let's dig into that on the next slide. So as AI takes over more search, social has quietly become the discovery engine. Right now, Meta still drives nearly 70% roughly of all healthcare social conversions, and platforms like TikTok, Reels aren't just vanity metrics. It's really where patients are finding care. Short form storytelling, clinician explainers, patient stories, authentic patient testimonials outperform static visuals by 3 times. And it's not just about running more ads, it's really about showing care and that creative. So the brands that really win on social today are the ones that feel human, not polished. Now let's connect that discovery phase with what comes next, how we retarget those high intent users and really guide them up to conversion. So retargeting isn't just background noise anymore. It's a really, really big part of the strategy. We use tight geofencing, usually 5-10 miles around each facility, so ads really feel local to the patient. Creative rotates daily to avoid that fatigue and really match that patient intent. So if someone viewed a knee pain treatment page, they might see a message like still comparing knee specialists. That kind of precision there really lifts ROI by almost 2 times. And when we pair that display with search, you get true follow me visibility. So 3 to 5 touch points across a week. And that's really how we keep healthcare systems top of mind for all the way up from research to appointment. So we built the demand and visibility, but next big leap here is measurement. So looking at how attribution has evolved from clicks to care here, this is where marketing really finally meets operations. So we're connecting GA4, AI-assisted call tracking platforms, privacy platforms, like FreshPaint, into a single HIPAA-safe ecosystem that lets us trace every call, appointment, revenue event, really end to end here. Call scoring helps us separate inquiries from true conversions. And now we can attribute revenue also by service line, not just campaign. Dashboards refresh weekly here, really cutting that lag time between insight and action by almost 40%. So true attribution really isn't about just counting clicks here, right? It's about connecting the data to ultimate patient outcomes. And that shift really from volume to value is exactly where the KPIs are heading next. So in 2025, we're retiring the old metrics here. Things like click-through rate, CPC, and impressions really only tell us part of the story. What matters now are the outcome-based KPIs. So that's like cost per book patient, lead quality score, lifetime value per channel. These are the metrics that really align marketing with real patient care. The best healthcare brands aren't chasing volume anymore. They're measuring value. So that's really what separates the reactive marketers from predictive ones. Next, let's look at how visibility itself has changed, because the SERP that we all used to know and love is much different than it was just 2 years ago. So we've really got to change the way that we're looking at the search engine results page, because it isn't linear anymore, it's layered. Patients are now seeing AI overviews, paid ads, map listings, organic results all at once. Healthcare systems that show up across all 4 layers there, paid, local, organic, and AI, are the ones that really dominate patient discovery. That multi-layer presence really drives 38% higher click-through and 25% higher patient trust. So instead of choosing one layer, you want to own them all here. Paid gives you visibility, local gives you proximity, and organic builds credibility. AI builds context. All right, so here's what the modern patient journey looks like today. Impression, AI interaction, to click to call, to appointment, to outcome. Privacy tools like FreshPaint, AI-assisted call tracking, J4 let us see every step of that path and tie it back to real patient revenue. So we're moving past surface metrics, no more clicks, form fills, SXS indicators. Now it's all about the cost per booked patient, lead quality index, revenue per patient acquired. Just in an AI-driven world, data ownership is strategy. So whoever controls that signal really controls the outcome. And I'll pass it back to Michelle now to talk about the future of paid media.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm seeing lots of great questions. So I'm excited for Q&A, by the way. So future of paid media, right? So what does the future hold? AI is shifting from automation to anticipation. So algorithms are predicting, learning why our patients act, not just how they search. So within 2026, we'll start to see ads performing within the AI ecosystems themselves. So Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, turning chat interfaces into new conversion points. So what do we've seen? We've seen this with shopping, right? Being launched as well. We'll pretty much can expect to hopefully see this within appointments as well, or perhaps inquiries. So predictive building or bidding will allow us to build against anticipation of users within time, location, and behavior signals. So Google's AI Max that they've launched in terms of campaigns, as well as Gemini, will soon integrate with true intent-driven targeting. And we will only look to forecast more localized visibility for those that adapt this, as well as cross-channel AI budgeting will be a key way to draw in and maintain within paid media performance in terms of the world of AI, right? So with SEO launches or SEO or organic visibility, you'll really want to lean into the cross-channel AI budgeting, which will reduce manual optimizations time by up to 40%. So we have this little cookie logo essentially saying that the cookie era is over. So owning data before AI owns the decisions is going to be important. First party signals are now the competitive advantage. We'll talk about this. I know I saw a question come in for Q&A of how that looks like, what that looks like in terms of retargeting. FreshPaint will enable compliancy. That is a tool that we could sometimes utilize. Instead of relying on actual PHI data, you're going to want to rely on ad engagement and events-based retargeting. So those have been through your websites, those have engaged with your ads. It's going to be event-based, and offline conversions, you can upload certain lists too that get protected within their information. We can dive into that a little bit more as well. But that ensures basically HIPAA compliancy, but also being able to retarget. So owning your data and owning your targeting is going to be extremely important and vital. Instead of gleaning on the ad platforms that want to essentially allow you to put your dollars into them and allow them to continue to spend without thinking for yourself, and allow them to use the, whether it's Advantage Plus on Meta or, PMax without guardrails on Google, you'll want to stop relying on that overly and rely on your own actual mix of audience building and budget allocation. So building your own internal warehouse of what are my engagement metrics or KPIs that actually matter, views, calls, what is the actual conversion quality that matters as well? Who's actually showed up? Who actually is likely to book in time and time again, or actually needs my services? And what is the lifetime value that I'm gleaning from each channel, whether it's Google, whether it's Bing, whether it's Meta, or et cetera, right? So healthcare organizations are leveraging this first party data is going to grow about 1.7x faster year over year as the AI implementation has grown as well. So data control essentially is strategic control. What are the takeaways, right? For my folks who are taking notes in the room. So step one, do a diagnosis of yourself, whether it's incognito mode, quickly do a search as to how you're appearing in your AI overviews and search. What are the service lines that you're actually showing up for? What are you not? What are your competitors showing up for versus you? Look at your historical impression data, whether it's in your CRM or data platform that you have, whether it's GA4 or the ads platforms themselves. Audit for your creative fatigue, right? We all think we have the best creatives. Look at it from your patient's journey. Are you communicating in the way that they want to be received, or you want the way that you want them to be received? Review your click-through rate trends. That would be a great indicator and actual data to show you how your creative is performing, as well as your ad frequency. Align and centralize all your data and messaging, right? Across the board, it should be concise and consistent with your landing page, your SEO content, and then the ad assets themselves. Step two, connect the data, the tracking as best as we can. And we're happy to have offline conversations with those of you who have more questions as well of what that looks like. Strengthen that tracking and data. Lean into the funnel, right? Lean into using the data as you can to build a retargeting funnel, a prospecting funnel. Align your messaging across the board to lean into what AI is already pushing towards, what your patients are looking for. But stand out with emotional assets, humanize the experience for them. Third, you want to ensure the call tracking and CRM is actually communicating back to the platform, right? Create that feedback loop. Step three, activating the visibility. So then taking away from the learnings of the data, make that into action items. Really relaunch certain manual campaigns if you need to, test certain campaigns, shift the budgets, scale where you can, expand within your local targeting where you can as well, especially for underperforming markets. And you'll want to do a creative refresh. And I know some of us are thinking we're not TikTokers. That's not what we're alluding to for creatives. Creatives is also your headlines. It's also your site links. It's also your image extensions. It's your landing page experience. You'll want to take away and be able to refresh and integrate testing every 10 days, right? Step four, attribution, and lean into that for performance. So measuring down your funnel outcomes, your bookings, your appointments, keeping track with the data that we get, rebalancing your budgets towards that, even if it's just monthly or quarterly, and maintaining this process as a full-on cadence versus a one-step process. So what did we learn today? AI changed the playbook. We all know that even before coming in here. Patients are now getting answers before clicking. The winning folks that are in this room are going to be designing their strategies towards zero-click visibility. SEO is building authority, and paid media is allowing you to establish your guaranteed visibility in front of your audiences. So you're able to balance awareness and conversions through integrated search. Momentum wins. Consistency is key. As we stay consistent and lean into despite these changes, you'll see folks who have paused out ads when budgets are tight or when they're not sure what the future looks like, actually falling behind, and their ads losing the visibility and the learnings that they've built so long for to keep. Your data is your ownership, which is your freedom. So first party data is signaling into your ads, which will outperform, allowing the algorithm or the platforms to blindly guess. Control what you measure. You decide what KPIs you want to go after, and allow the platforms to show you where that is and where that is going in terms of predictability. Compliancy is key. We talked about that. And emotion still wins. So we'll still want to lean into the empathy-driven messaging, humanize the experience. It'll always outperform the automation, always. What can we expect in the future? I know we'll talk about the future in terms of search becoming service. Google's increasing in their experiences as well. Just this week, we've seen some changes as well across the AI front in terms of search platforms. And AI will rank practices, hospitals, based off your trust signals, right? That feedback loop that we discussed, based off your accuracy, how often users are engaging with you in your ads, as well as the overall user experience. Some of the emerging AI channels that are coming are just listed for you here. This is not the end, and this is not the beginning. Search is becoming service. We talked about the generative experiences. We have ChatGPT Pulse, OpenAI Marketplace, GPT-5 Merchant Program, Gemini Ad Studio, and Amazon Health Cloud Ads, just to cover the barely scratching the surface of what we can expect for coming. Perfect. I'll pass it back to Stuart before Q&A.
Great, team. Thank you. That was awesome. I was just loved the way you guys presented. Good job. So we have a bunch of questions, and we'll be getting straight into the Q&A in just a moment. We've got a bunch actually, and then pre-questions too. So we'll cover those in a minute. As we talked about, we can actually help you with this stuff. So we're educators for sure, but we can actually, help hospitals, health systems, providers track patients and implement these things. Our information and contact info is there. If you'd like a consultation with us, just contact us, and we will be glad to help you. So on the Q&A, Michelle, you actually saw a couple questions you wanted to respond to, and I've got a couple, and I'm pretty sure Brandon does too. So why don't you start with some of the ones that are really relevant to what you just talked about?
Yes. So I answered the question about CTV, and I want to be able to be directly more clear about that. So it's not about just the phone. Most folks are actually on TV and desktops and households. It's actually based off the household themselves. Actually, let me highlight this. And so essentially that feeds into the process. And so it's not essential for the phones. No, a TV essentially can be retargeted as well. It's based off the search behavior that the patients or users would take afterwards. So if you watched an ad in between a show that you're watching at home with your family, you would then go to your phone, which then the paid search ads would then appear, or paid social, whatnot. So great question.
Right, we had a question about, I'm sorry, Michelle, you did answer this, but and just in case someone missed it, about the retargeting part, because that's, the word retargeting probably sent people into, at least into
a frenzy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, yep, I love that. That was the next question I was going to go to. So, basically, essentially with retargeting, you'll want to go after events-based retargeting in terms of behaviors. You can also utilize offline conversion list uploads, which we wanted to include more details, but we didn't want to blow everyone's minds today. So message us if you can afterwards. We'd be happy to dive this in with you and walk you through that process of what that looks like for your needs. But essentially, you'll want to do events-based and conversion list uploads. And Stuart, I don't know if you want to touch on that more so than I did.
Yeah, well, we're going to say that, we use FreshPaint for the privacy. FreshPaint's been a partner of ours for a number of years. There are other technologies out there, so I'm not saying it's the only one. I just want to have full disclosure that that's our partner. You can do a lot of, you just have to really know this stuff, you guys. When the Google tracking technology and the Office of Civil Rights came out around 2022, we immediately went to, high-end attorneys, national law firms, as well as consultants, and we ended up choosing FreshPaint as our partner for this. But again, there are other partners out there. You just need to make sure you really know what you're doing, right? That's really key. I'll answer the next question. Couple questions we have. One is the number one, the simple one is, can we get the organic presentation? Yes, if you want the organic presentation, just email us through the Q&A up there. We'll make sure we get that to you, both the deck and the recording of that. So we'll be happy to do that. One of the questions was, how do I, there's some related questions here. One was general. I'll take the general one, and then maybe somebody else on the team can take the other one. So one of the questions was, for healthcare marketers, how do you justify continued investment in paid search when budgets are tightening? And so the answer there, I think, is Obviously, it depends on the health system or provider that you work with. But really, I think a lot of it just always comes down to justifying ROI and the first and showing number one today, if you're showing we spent, $100,000 and we got 542 clicks, as a CEO, I'm like, what? Okay, I guess, but we spent $100,000. So it's a lot more exciting when you can say, and we can attribute this means this many patients, and we can estimate the surgical volume was that. That's going to be a lot more compelling. Secondarily, so the tracking technologies that are out there today, the combination of the CRM, the AI assisted call tracking, which I would love to do a webinar on just that, how powerful that is. Fresh Paint, some of these other technologies can help you build a case, which is just far, far stronger and that than was practically possible before. I'd like to say that to me, this year is the most exciting year I've had as a marketer since I started. I mean, since we were starting our agency 20 years ago, when paid search became a thing. So there's so much going on and things that are possible now that really weren't before, but it just gets really technical really fast. But if you can do that, then you can prove what you're doing is working. It's going to be a lot easier. You may have to pilot, use that word pilot internally if you have to. That's something that we find works. And then I would also say prioritize the service line, right, that you're going after if you're doing service line marketing. And in any provider I think I've ever worked with, there's usually some things they say, oh, I have plenty of those cases over there, and I certainly want to serve those people in those cases, but over here is something we're trying to build. So I would say prioritize. And the next question was similar, but a little different. And I want somebody else on my team to answer, which was how, with limited budgets navigating new AI-powered SERPs, which layers should they prioritize first to get the greatest impact? I think, Brandon, you can take that in terms of, I think we're talking about organic versus paid. Like what would you guys say?
So in terms of which layer, I mean, you first need to understand like which layers do you already own? Like, are you getting, images? Are you getting video? Are you, not just looking at standard Google search, but are you also looking at other search surfaces like YouTube, like Reddit, like Quora, like be in the places where people are asking questions. So some of that you can take care of with your owned media, meaning like your website itself. I would dig into making sure that you have a stack that is driven by radical prioritization. Like, what is the service that's bringing in the majority of your dollars and put your money there first? Like, do that first. Then pick another one that's maybe halfway to that. And that will give you a sense of what sort of incrementality can you drive. So your organic there is then a supporting actor to paid media, which is going to be your primary capture. Turning that off would be pretty much suicidal at this point. So you can diversify in so many different ways now. Like just start. Like I don't know what stuff, just start.
Yeah.
Um,
Anything else, Brandon? Because I want to jump to another question.
Go
Um,
for it.
So a couple questions came in about FreshPaint. As I just mentioned a minute ago, we're as a partner with them. If you're interested in other platforms, we're aware of some. I would just email us. It's kind of beyond the scope of today, and we can talk about this. I would give you, and there's a new one emerging as well. Um, a couple thoughts here, though. Number one, be very, very careful. Like running naked with having Google Analytics or Facebook Pixel, Metapixel is something you just shouldn't do. I have seen people that don't have any budget for this at all that run without tracking. That's really scary because obviously you can be HIPAA compliant by removing all the tracking technologies, but your marketing is like driving a car at 100 miles an hour without having the windshield to see where you're going and where you've been. So I would say be careful there. I would say as you're looking at various platforms, there's other options to and oh, by the way, if you're interested in this particular topic about just how this whole world began, I have a really good podcast that I can send you. We have a ton of content on these kinds of issues, so I can send you a pretty up-to-date uh, podcast about that, along with like legal sources to view, different things you could do. So assets. So just reach out to me for that. I would also just say that Be careful of like sort of a Johnny come lately brand in terms of like if you use anybody, just make sure anything to do with HIPAA, you're using a brand leader. When we work with databases or CRMs, we want to work with people that actually can prove to us plausibly there's a real company behind it because you don't want to find out that you don't. I can share a quick anecdote. We had a client. We gave them several recommendations for these privacy platforms. They went to somebody brand new we had never heard of. We were worried, and they totally screwed up the tracking. It was a debacle. Everything just went down. So be careful. Make sure you do find a reputable vendor. It doesn't have to be Freshpaint. There are others. You can also build your own systems, but just be careful not to use just some guy or some gal that called you. Um, the next question is, where have you seen AI deliver the biggest lift in performance? And there's a lot of answers there. I'll just start and then my team can jump in. When we're talking about AI, just keep in mind today's focus is really AI as it relates to Google, right? And ChatGPT and these things. But AI in healthcare can mean things like AI bots answering the phone for you, which is a classic problem with health systems. AI can be AI assisted call tracking. AI can deliver revenue cycle management. But in the context of today's webinar, team, any of you guys have some comments on that for best lift, more specifically to paid search or SEO?
Yeah, we've seen it on a couple of different ways. Obviously on our end, we utilize AI tools in terms of the targeting, specifically within healthcare, of where folks are, how they're searching, and even how we present ourselves within SEO results, right? Within AI visibility. On the other end, for most of our clients that we see in this space, they're also, yes, leaning into more so the AI, conversions within, getting inquiries, having that be a trackability factor in terms of the ads. So I would say specifically for paid media, specifically as to what we're discussing today, it's going to be to lean into for your keyword research, as well as the actual infrastructure of your campaigns and the tracking component that you've touched on, Stuart. And then Brandon.
I'll piggyback off of that. Something else you're really going to want to pay attention to is um, what do these large language models believe about your brand?
Mm-hmm.
That is a massive trust factor. And because the hallucination rate in healthcare is vastly higher than it would be in any other industry, you need to be watching out for those. So you have to watch for those organically, and in paid, you can actually dial that in a lot more rigorously with the targeting and the recommendations Michelle provided.
Very good. As we wrap up here, I'll just add a comment or two. A lot of our questions that we had pre-meeting were all about the organic side. And, Brandon, like, I'll give maybe a comment on that. And then again, of course, people can request the webinar and we'll send it to them. But, the organic side of the things is the world has changed, completely. Like it's, again, a very exciting, a little scary, but a really exciting time. And the answer there on the organic side is to be everywhere. I mean, really be everywhere. Is like if I had to summarize it, so, some of the things that we break down is that we've always cared about, like your brand, that matters much more now. Your authority in terms of your expertise and things like PR can be embedded to make that really successful. Making sure you have your Google profiles and the reviews. So there's some basic things you should be doing already. There's a lot of other things you can be doing with technologically. Brandon, if you have a 30-second, ray of hope for that. Or as we wrap up here, I guess actually maybe a better way to answer that is just how about the question is of like how to tie in the SEO with the paid search side because and the paid media side might be helpful to our team.
Sure. Well, the way I've been thinking about it is just in understanding the underlying technology of transformers, right? There's a window in which things have to fit, right? It's like on the one hand, yes, you're getting almost like, Einstein level capabilities, but on the other side, you're also dealing with kind of almost like a 3-year-old. And so if you kind of keep in mind that our future is this sort of jagged nature and understand what that context window is, and each of those large language models has different versions of that. They have a different attention span. And if you understand how to work with it, and what it spits out, how is it building the summaries, what's more important in terms of sequencing, you'll have a better understanding of the patient journey. And that is where your targeting is really going to fly.
All right, awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening today and viewing us. We've really enjoyed this. Feel free to network and reach back to us. We're here and available to answer questions. The email address up there is my one of my addresses. It's a real address. It's our publishing address, but the emails will get to me and I'll distribute it to the team as we go through that. Tom, did you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say, Stuart, Brandon, Michelle, and Madison, thank you all for sharing your expertise with us today. And another thank you to Healthcare Success for sponsoring today's program. Please do complete the survey, and a recording of this webinar and the slides will be shared this afternoon. So that concludes today's presentation. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you.